you don't know which way to go, the answer is Jesus and Elevation Radio.
God bless you. This is Elevation Radio 1, and I'm your host, Pastor Steve, the music band tenor, and we thank you for taking the journey. This program that spotlights positive people doing positive while serving a positive God whose name is Jesus. And I just want to get that out there clearly. Our episode today is called The Necessity of Grace. The Necessity of Grace. And the sub-thought is there trauma in the capital? Is there trauma in the capital? Before I read the introduction, I just want to say the prayer is brought to you by God, and it is also brought by Healthy DC and me, Leadership Council. Good God Almighty. And so our 1 Peter 5 and 10 says that if after you have suffered a while, surely there is no suffering in the nation's capital, but in Washington, D.C. is the seat of our democracy, the home of the most powerful men in America, where the halls of justice are located and freedom and fairness are proclaimed every citizen in the U.S. Surely even African Americans who live, work, and worship there are appreciated, right? Respected, right? Allowed the pursuit of happiness, even there. We are privileged to talk with one of DC's finest civic and civil rights minds, Dr. Rhonda Hamilton, an executive director of Healthy DC and Me Leadership Coalition, who graces our ways with an urgent message. And so before we get started, I just want to say, out of courtesy, welcome to our program, Dr. Hamilton.
Thank you very much, Pastor Stephen, as well as your First Lady, Leora. I'm very delighted and honored to be a guest. Thank you for having me, and God bless the entire Elevation Radio 1 family.
Wow, okay. Sounds good. I like it. Before we get started, let us go to the most beautiful part of this program. She's beautiful. Let me ring the bell. That is the lovely Queen, First Lady Leora Turner, who will read our verse to rehearse today.
For to this end also did I write, that I might know the proof of you, whether ye be obedient in all things.
Mm-hmm. And so it also says that what it said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Good God Almighty. And so let us go immediately to our interview. Dr. Hamilton, if I may ask you a question,
Oh, absolutely. Please do.
Okay. Who is Dr. Hamilton?
That's a wonderful question. Dr. Rhonda Hamilton is actually a God-fearing woman who is the daughter of schizophrenia and the daughter of addiction, a native of Washington, D.C., and a servant of the Most High in all that I prescribe to do. That's a great overview.
Okay. And for all those folks who are educationally astute, this is one for you. You can call in and ask the doctor any question you want to ask her about life in D.C. 1-914-205-5353. 1-914-205-5353. I see you're doing great work. What school did you go to?
Dunbar Senior High, and also the University of the District of Columbia, which I'm very proud to say, and also the School of Hard Knocks, growing up in Ward 8, Southeast D.C., if I must say.
Did you say Ward 8? Are you talking about Anaconda?
Talking about Anacostia.
Oh, well,
the land of Frederick Douglass.
Oh, mercy.
On a given day with so much going on, I guess Anaconda could be considered.
That's where I called her when they sent me down there to work. And I said, snakes are out there. It's treacherous. It's dangerous. So I heard
it's interesting, but It's interesting. We have our wonderful glory stories as well. I'm a product of the beautiful Anacostia and our dear deceased Marion Barry, who's done some wonderful things to get our story on the map as well.
Oh, sacred! One of the best leaders that I know of. Matter of fact, the reason why I was working for the federal government is because of his influence in this DMV area, and African Americans got government jobs because of the great Marion Barry. I tell you.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and I can imagine that being such a colorful figure, there are many things that folks want to remember him for, but we remember him for what he did for us as African American young children, not understanding what the future would bring, and he certainly did. And as a result, I feel compelled to be out here and forever uplifting his legacy.
It's said that I agree that grace basically is based on what God has done for you that you didn't deserve. And many of us who got opportunity to work government jobs were not qualified. Didn't know how to fill the application. I got my SF-171 form. That was when I released it. It had two sides to it. I couldn't believe it. It's going to take me like a year to fill this federal application.
Yeah, I think all of us are humble. I can remember my first government job, and again, I attribute that to the dear late Marion Barry. I think all of us, if we're humbled to remember where we came from, it's not so hard to realize the work we should be doing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so, while you were growing in this environment, you greater accomplishment. What is the crime like there in D.C.?
Now that's a question. Well, let me say it to you like this. As I currently speak with you, we in the nation's capital are living under a state of emergency as it relates to the gun violence. And then as of recent, in the last 72 hours, we understand we're living under a public emergency as it relates to the Medicaid and the contract of such. So we're really concerned in the city right now with so much going on. Many of our marginalized citizens are not receiving the comprehensive mental health care that's needed. And as mental health advocates, we're concerned that there's so many gaps in our health care, our social services, our housing understandings. And I'm sure our Baltimoreans can relate as well. We've got a problem with the governing of the decision-making for families of low-income means, in our opinion.
We have some people have mental issues when we deal with the schizophrenic behavior of the mayor and city council, no matter what mayor it is. We go from up to Catherine Pugh and up to Jack No Name Young and to the baby mayor. That's what we're doing. And if they can only show up to some of our grievances when we have town hall meetings and not be arrogant to the point where they just don't want to show up, they don't want to respond to the media. They don't want to come out and talk to the public. The ones that
the dismissive behavior. It's unfortunate. There's a level of dismissiveness that is just unacceptable. That you're a public figure, and the very issues and people and constituents that you were sworn into office to protect. It seems like they get into office and forget why they're there.
Well, let me take us to another point here, because we're going to get to the trauma side. And this was the necessity of grace was actually a sermon that I heard that I never got to talk about, but I'm talking about it today. And the question I was going to ask the audience, which I asked the audience today, are you a wounded woman? I say there are roughly 2 million single fathers in the U.S. 40% are divorced. 21 fathers die weekly. Divorced men have far greater risk of suicide than women, 6 to 1. Get that for you. 1914-205-5353. So in that kind of situation, you can't find a job, you get thrown out the house, you get child support, everything. You might get a little funny acting when somebody, if your wife or your girlfriend starts saying something to you, and you ain't this, you ain't that, blah, blah, blah. You might, kind of buck up on that with all that pressure on you. You might punch holes in walls. You might want to do a barricade situation. You might want to, what can I do, especially if I'm a veteran and they're not giving me benefits and all that. I did something, my name on the line, and they trying to disrespect me. I'm tired. That's what I meant based on respect. I'm tired of being disrespected. What are you trying to do to build something in that area to help a trauma center when it happens or something might happen?
I love that you have touched on it and brought it in the way that you have, because the reality for many families is that they associate matters of what you were demonstrating, which we have attributed to be PTSD. But the important thing, it brings to mind Dr. Chapman, Edwin Chapman, who's one of our colleagues, who's for 40-plus years dealt with matters of addiction and community and internal medicine. And one of the things that I recall him saying is that the citizens of Washington, D.C., is, from what he's observed, they're living and surviving daily through matters of PTSD. So we understand PTSD to be associated with our military folks, because usually they're the ones going to war and experiencing horrific levels of trauma and dangers and death. But the reality that is escalated in our very communities for folks who haven't been signed up as soldiers or to go to war. So the reality that we as a population have cycles and communities of families that are trying to survive those very situations, as you explained, knocking holes in the walls, being unhealthy, not having the proper kinds of outlets and medical resources to be able to relay these troubles to. And this is what we're concerned about. And the most important thing is the fact that our children are having to witness these understandings and be raised by households of unhealthy adults. And for that reason, you mentioned 1 Peter 5:10. For me, getting prepared for today's show, 1 Peter 4:10 came to mind, where it references the fact that each of us should use whatever gift we have that we've received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. And basically, he created us to live in community and to serve others with gifts that he's given us uniquely. And so to serve others for me is godly, because we see so many folks going through, and I myself spent many nights in our household growing up not understanding. So we do this work from the perspective of trying to get our adults healthy and aware to recognize where they need help so that we can save our children. And so absolutely, as a result of that, the Capital City Emergency Level 2 Trauma and Wellness Center is our baby project. I'm so excited to be here with you today to talk about it, because I'm so sure that many of our families out there are stuck in cycles of trauma, and we've got babies that we've got to save as well.
My goodness. And so since you're here to talk about it.
Would you say that again? I'm sorry.
I said, since you're here to talk about it, talk about it.
Okay, great. Yes, the Capital City Emergency Level 2 Trauma and Wellness Center is a project that was born as a result of the need. You heard me mention that we are living in a state of emergency. I'm sure many of you, there's not a headline that goes by that you don't hear about gun violence in the nation's capital, or us burying one of our babies in the nation's capital, or us having a heavy load of drug overdosing for opioid, fentanyl, and HIV presence. We've just got a series of things going on in the nation's capital, and the reality is that in Ward 8 Southeast, where we have predominance of African-American families, imagine that, we don't have a level 2 or 1 trauma center to address the lives that are being lost on the spot. What we have is the ability to quickly try to get them across the water to where we have at least 4 trauma ability centers available. And what we don't understand is the lopsided dissemination of resources that continues to go on. And our coalition, when we realized post-George Floyd that our communities, we witnessed the destruction and the outpouring of emotion as a result of their frustrations. And when these moments happen, we've got to stand prepared to respond responsibly. And so when the dust settles in Ward 8 Southeast D.C. in the face of gentrification, we as a coalition of leaders and organizers have decided that we must have centers that address trauma, that are able to address life-threatening understandings on the spot, and most importantly, that are going to call out our governmental elected officials when these resources are not finding themselves to the families that need them. So post-George Floyd is coming forward to say enough is enough.
Okay, let's get into it. My goodness. And so, first of all, how far a drive is that over the water? How long is that for them to come over the water to get the person on Southeast and then them back over that side?
Currently, to get medical care, it could be anywhere from 25 to 30 minutes from many of the reports and research that's been done. So you find yourself in a life-threatening situation in the city and you just happen to be in the eastern sector of the city, you're going to have to take an ambulance ride across the water. And God forbid if your insurance is of question, especially since now over 200,000 people who deal with Medicaid, since that's now a public emergency, I'm not sure where they're routing our family and community members, considering that things are not as stable as they should be. And that's why we're coming forward, because there are things that we're accepting from our governmental administrations that we should not. And if we don't get involved, it's going to put our health in jeopardy. So right now we understand that ride to be at least 25 to 30 minutes, if not longer. And now since the Medicaid contract is in jeopardy, God forbid, we have no idea what they're going to do with our people.
It seems to be a design plan. Well, get the level 2 trauma center, which is much needed. This should be no problem. You've got a location, don't you? You've got a location.
Absolutely do. We do. We do. And I'll tell you, as with anything, because it's coming from the community side of understandings, we're going to deal with much of the dismissiveness that we've been dealing with when we've been advocating and activism about situations such as the homelessness, the slumlord, the reality of the lack of mental health services. They view us as a threat, and I don't understand that because people that are governing are in there. They look like you and I, so they have access to the same history and research that we do, but still they make these different decisions. So that's very interesting, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And as I'm in that mood today, because we had the same problem here, where I called the Oreo cookie complex. you got chocolate on the outside, but this is white and vanilla, creamy on the inside. You know. So right now, because I've done some research on them, Anthony Allen Williams.
Oh boy.
The first former mayor. CEO of the Federal City Council, it says here, a partner of Friedman, like Roland and Raleigh, who's actually a premium public real estate company, a trust company, a real trust company he formed to buy and lease government and real estate for nonprofits. He also in the D.C. law firm of Avant, Fox, and looks like here it's another name here, but the practice where they actually assisted government entities and municipalities, directors in 2012 at the Bank of Georgetown. Interesting. And
isn't it?
Also, he's on the board of the GW. Georgetown, Washington was in the hospital.
Imagine that.
Yeah. So, since my man is learned, he's been to Harvard, Yale, Juris Doctorate, and all these things. He looks black. He should be able to help you. In his profile, is to help economic. So is he?
I'm sure that our former mayor, Anthony Williams, that you're speaking of, with all those wonderful titles, he's more than qualified. The challenge that we are facing in our communities in Anacostia and east of the Anacostia River in the nation's capital is that many of our folks are disconnected from the understanding of the dangers of having folks so educated and documented make decisions for them when they don't show up to the voting polls, or make decisions that don't include their very everyday lives. For example, it does not surprise me that D.C. is thriving in the developer understandings and that gentrification is well underway, because this is just as Mr. former Mayor Anthony Williams would have it. The concern is that because we are heavily populated in an African-American sense east of that river, there's absolutely no reason why their plans for the developing and everything else should not include these families. To watch election after election and to watch development after development go on in the nation's capital and see the cycles of despair not change for these families is just awful. It's just awful, and the reality is that they keep doing it because they don't expect that anyone will come to their rescue or that these families will speak up or wake up and call it out.
Well, when you elect bad, you get bad. And so here's something I discovered here, that there was, does the name Kathleen Allen mean anything to you?
Say it one more time, please.
Catherine.
Why should the name Catherine Allen mean something to me? Would you explain?
She was trying to get a seat from Lisa, she looks like Solomon, Sherman. Sherman. I'm sorry, Lisa Sherman. She was trying to run for her seat, and that most of her, it was the investigation, most of her report, her signatures were proven to be fraud, false. That's the same problem that Mr. Anthony Allen Williams had when he was running, and he had to, he was fined over $277,000 for having stickers, and he had to do it right.
Very dangerous. No, I wasn't aware of that, but it does not surprise me. And that is, yeah,
we do the research here. So,
it doesn't surprise me is all I'll say to that. Coming from a political town.
And so we have it has landed on our feet many fraudulent and unscrupulous. You lie in the beginning, you lie in the middle, you lie in the end, and so when you like this, I'm just saying because there's speculation about how Brandon Scott, the Baltimore mayor, somehow went from the back of the pack to the front almost overnight.
We've had a few of those as well.
Exactly.
We've had a few of those as well.
Yeah. And so we need support and help. Yet, despite, what can you imagine? The slaves trying to take themselves. The lower people, as they say. I heard someone call me, talking about me years ago, European bottom feeders. Imagine the bottom feeders are trying to support themselves, trying to build their own trauma to center so that they know how to cut us, so that we won't jab them. What was the Dr. Ruby Jones said? You want to get call it a jab vaccine. You put graphene oxide, Pfizer balls, poison. She said, the host said, why would you do that? Because they had poison so they can remember us. And the graphene oxide has the same symptoms as the person swallowing COVID-19. Well, how did you know? In New York, look at the base. Put them in the chamber so they could take them away. What are they going to do? Somewhere so they could take the parts out and sell them to black women. Get up, wake up. It's trying to together.
Yeah.
Trying to push you out, lay you out. They don't want you. Population control.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Okay. Matter of fact, Dr. Ruby Jones, DrRubyJones.com, a person who's been in 20 years. Someone sent this to me. She said that she has never seen SARS, COVID-19, or whatever. Ended up isolated. She's never seen it. so how did?
Oh, this story, yeah. Yeah, and it's too soon for us to find out the true stories. That's the sad thing, is that there's always somebody that knows the truth.
And they're scared to tell but some will stick their neck out. One doctor said from Florida, an older doctor, all the figures you heard about 90% effectiveness, take it turn around to 19% because there'll be no animal testing. So the point is that if it's 91%, why do I have to still wear a mask?
Yeah, it's scary. It's so scary. One of the things, our history is rich with understandings of why trust is important in this medical field, and especially at this time. But the truth of the matter is we can't know everything, and we have to rely on what they're going to tell us in many cases until we can understand from folks that will come forward and speak out. But I'll tell you something, Pastor Steve. I'm sorry, as you talk about us, being referenced as bottom feeders. As bottom feeders, we've got to figure out and use what we have available in the absence of knowing. And one of the things I looked at, and I'll go on record for saying this is my own personal observation, but, these stories of dear Bill Gates and his wife divorcing right at the height of all of this, and him being one of the colorful figures in question surrounding all of these interesting vaccination understandings and developments. As a female who's been married and divorced, it's been known that he was, participated in acts of infidelity. But for some reason, when we were at the height of the pandemic, she just couldn't take it anymore and left. So I just really believe that there's something more to that, because to know that you would conveniently participate in what is looking to be mass murder, depending on how you look at it and how it plays out, I can't imagine anyone with a good heart standing by and watching that or being connected to that. So I'm really watching that to see if, maybe that'll come out down the line, because it just really struck me odd that at this moment the marriage was so strained she just had to leave. And those are the stories that they give us on the forefront. But I couldn't imagine being married to someone and finding out that they had a hand in something so heinous, if that ends up being the case.
That was so heavy.
That's my personal. I might be reaching or doing too much, as these youth say, but I'm just saying we have to be careful not to always be so comfortable to accept the story they feed us, because we can't really ever know, but we've got to learn how to start, knowing better so we can do better as a people overall, because they don't ever really come out and tell us the truth.
All right. I think I do ask my lovely wife, the Queen. Let me segue. What is your take on this? Oh, mighty Queen.
Yes.
Does that mean you were listening?
I was doing some stuff around the house, but okay.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
I had one. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right.
It just caught my ear real quick.
I'm gonna have to demote you, Queen.
Okay.
I'm allowed in for backup.
I'm sorry.
All right. Let me. I'm still on the Good God Almighty.
It's not time to prepare dinner. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, radio. Anyway, hold on a second. Let me go to commercial. Good God Almighty. Jesus.
Oh, my God.
All right, listen, LCC, Leadership Coalition presents a comedy cruise to remember, oh my goodness, with laborers and teachers and icons, and all in the name of charity. God have mercy. What we have here, we'll have Stacey Carter, John Miller, the host, AJ Chandler, guest host, and Laughing Lady, Joe Clark. Chris Black and Wanda Fair, September 25th, 2021. The girl AJ Chandler from 102.3 will be guest hosting Theo Soul Sound live in the Opium Band. Fat Smile by Divination. Awesome. Listen, help me see 2021 community listen icon award winners. Ticket donation, only $100, small change. Go to the Eventbrite registration or a ticket stub. Just text us your receipt or call 410-302-2727 and register. Health Matters, hashtag Capital City Emergency, hashtag www.capitalcityemergency.org, www.capitalcityemergency.org. For powerful donation to 244-9436. That's 240-274-9436 or 202-369-503. Get your laugh on. God Almighty. Okay. Now we're back. We're back with Dr. Hamilton. And let me ask you this question, Dr. Hamilton. Is the community excited about this trauma level 2 center?
Yes, those that we have been serving are excited. They don't understand exactly all of the wonderfulness that it will bring for them, but they're excited to see that someone's coming forward and putting their issues first. And so I am honored to participate in endeavors such as the one I'm participating with you, so that it helps us to get the word out further that, there's a group of us that have come together to be able to highlight the need in our community. And so we're inviting all to become a part of our movement because it's necessary that their voices and their stories come through.
Oh, my goodness, movement. Okay. So let me ask you a question. You're having I know it says D.C., but D.C. is just 30 minutes away from Baltimore, which is, I'm skipping a jump away from Virginia. So on your board, what's the criteria to be on your board or to support? You will take support and insistence and wonderfulness and geniusness from Virginia and Baltimore if it was to enhance your board. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. And I love your questions. Thank you. The nation's capital, should it not serve as the blueprint or the example as we start to seek to liberate communities around our nation that are plagued with these types of lopsided dissemination of resources and realities. Of course, we want talent from all over. We are the Healthy DC and Me Leadership Coalition because this is the origin or point of origin for our project and our coalition. However, our coalition is wonderfully made up of talents from across the sectors, DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and our advocate partnerships come from as far as South Carolina and North Carolina. So we certainly don't want you to get hung up on the DC part. We just wanted to make a statement that post-George Floyd, from a community activist standpoint, it's time to stand up and make the needs in our communities visible. And the only way that we're going to be successful is to come together with the intentions of making our contribution to history. The 100th year of the Black Wall Street massacre has just passed. And instead of us continuing to read these stories or orientate them, we've got to be ready to make our contributions. And we can't do that without a collective mix of talented brothers and sisters from across all sectors. And so we welcome and invite you all to take a look at our website, which is healthydcandme.org. That's healthydcandme.org. We have an advocate partners page that will allow you to sign right up and help us to understand that you're interested in the types of liberations that we're speaking of for our people, because it's time.
I'm going to volunteer my wife because she's related to Hammer, so I'm going to computer and sign up.
Awesome.
Thus saith the king.
I'm going to look forward to taking you up on that. We're interested.
You got that, Queen?
I got that.
Rule with an iron hand. So, okay. Let me see here. Give a shout out to the board. Who's on your board? You know, is that top secret or something?
That's a wonderful question. We have a board of advisors as well as we have our coalition. Our coalition is a wonderful mix of 7 organizations that came together. And the beautiful part about our coalition formation is that we each get to maintain the autonomy of our individual agencies. And what I mean by that is I am also the executive director and president of MI Mother's Keeper, which is a mental health advocacy firm. And we provide outreach and programming and, you know, all types of resources, and we link them to mental health services. But then we also have a beautiful representation from our clergy community. Overseer Dr. Ann Cole and the Kingdom Outreach Center. They do wonderful work, and as a matter of fact, they have an attachment to Team Maranatha here in Baltimore, which we believe our beautiful Pastor John Young ministers. And so we have been doing great work on the ground as a result of our beautiful collaborations. We've got a wonderful mix of mental health professionals as well as small business professionals. And so, again, healthydcme.org, our About Us page gives you the understanding of that. I'm most excited, Pastor Steve, about our board of advisors. With folks such as Dr. Chapman, yes, Dr. Meridian Afeni. We have wonderful years of wisdom, Dr. Carlinia Springer. We have some beautiful souls that serve, absolutely.
Wait a minute. Who'd you say?
Does that sound like a name you're familiar with? We were just, yes, Dr. Carlinia Springer, who I understand Dr. Frederick Ware Newsom. I was just honored with the Queen's Recognition Award from the Newsom Gospel Award community, where
were you there?
Dr. Carlinia Springer. I enjoyed it. Yes, I'm excited.
Were you there?
Were you there? Oh my goodness! Yes, I was there. I used to hear Mr. Dr. Bobby Jones. For the present.
So all people who are in the
I was the one who had the oxygen tank. Did you see me?
You know what? I'm sure I did, but I just off the top of my head don't recollect. I wish I had her. I would have come and given you a beautiful one.
I said that. I would have said that she was the one that had the fancy custom design hat.
Custom design hat. She had the
I'm gonna
sparkling
go back
black.
And look at our video.
the sparkling black silhouette dress
necklace
that cost me a lot of money. So,
I'm going to definitely go back and look at the video now.
I'm still putting it together now. I'm still putting it together back to her.
Yeah, that was a wonderful experience.
I got her a great outfit, but I had to eat peanut butter jam.
You know, your sense of humor is something. You all coming together is something. I'm very honored and thank you again for having me.
It's a pleasure. And I'm glad that you have, in the black community, mental health is not something that people like to talk about. We don't like to talk about families. It's just Uncle Remus just let him alone. Matter of fact, I think it was in the movie, was it Soul Food, where he had a special uncle who had some problems. He had money somewhere. Yeah. So we've had it. We don't like to talk about it. Yeah, we don't like to talk about it. And if I may say this, this is forward. I'm no longer in need of this now because I'm married. Thank God. But I'll tell you that when I was there, I met some very attractive women who had mental issues. Stalker material. So it's not like a label on the forehead.
Well,
You can say, she's a nutcase. Get her to the trauma center.
well, something, Mr. Stephen, and that's why it's important, and that's why we talk about it, because, when I came up as a daughter of schizophrenia, you heard me mention, we didn't have fancy words. No one knew what schizophrenia was. She was the crazy lady. And so in our community, when we don't understand something, we start creating our own terminology for it, and we're not always so sensitive to people's feelings, because what we're trying to do is mask our own feelings, because like you just said, many of us have stories of maybe a relative, or uncle, or aunt, or someone that we knew had challenges, and we just didn't understand it all. So we created the dialogue for it, and that's why I'm out here doing the work, because our children are the benefactors of such harsh understandings, and systemically the stigma is so thick that it doesn't create an environment for people that have challenges to really be comfortable. And that's why we're out here doing this work. Yes, our beautiful community members sometimes get plagued with challenges, and they don't understand how to maintain relationships, and some need medicine, and some need counseling, and some need to be able to have certain resources available. Therapy is not something that folks look at favorably in our community, but it makes a lot of difference. We're finding out new developments in how yoga helps out, and meditation is great. But if these aren't things that are in our vocabulary or in our understandings, then we're not able to have access to how to get healthy. And so that's why we're out here doing the work, because we've got to change the dialogue of people just being referenced as crazy or stalker, or there's a reason why things are happening and why people are acting out and making the choices they're making. And certainly there's a connection, in our opinion, to the gun violence.
This is Sheriff. Now we have a phone call. Welcome to Elevation Radio 1. How can I help you? Okay. And so I found I had suffered 3 or 4 losses from 2007, 2008, 2009, and I was having problems. And I was trying, doing stuff, but I was having problems. So I went to see someone because I was acting out. And I did that for a year. To keep me in the proper flow. So, but while they were diagnosing me, they came up with some stuff I didn't like. And Dr. Hamilton said I had ADHD. They said I had Asperger's, which I never knew. They said I had some pity and other things, and so I was feeling pretty bad. I said, I'm not supposed to be a pastor, musician, singer, recording artist, and I got all these issues, man. It's perfect until these things happen. And so I went to a seminar for other pastors, and these were some notable pastors in the city of Baltimore. And one of them allowed me to sit next to him. I was like, this is great. And the guest preacher came out, a white man, and said, I want you given the whole about how you should put your sermon together. And finally, he said, on Monday, I want you to do absolutely nothing. And I know it's hard for some of you preachers because y'all got ADD. Don't put a word and just put the head down. And I said, I'm in good company. Good God, I qualify. Okay. Woo, there's hope for me. Use the word first. God uses the word first. So, okay. My wife looks at me, and I'm sure a lot of women and her husband's like, okay.
Oh, my goodness.
My wife is looking at and she's like, what is he doing? Oh, Lord. Who did I marry?
Pastor Stephen, you know what you just described is validation. No matter what walk of life we come from and what we're dealing with, we're all seeking validation. on some level, whether we realize it or not. And the truth of the matter is, in our mental health community, we're always teaching folks that they are much more than their diagnosis. And so it's one thing to hear them, but to get validation that you're accepted somewhere and capable of receiving love. And I just think as a human population, sometimes when mental health is involved, we forget those very basics. You know, we don't have to understand what's wrong with an individual to show empathy or to express love.
Thank you, Doctor. Another question here in this sermon, which is, how are you getting to the top? How are you getting to the top? And it says here, but by grace, it is no longer on the basis of works. So you don't have to backstab anyone. You don't have to cut people up and split the church and all that just to get to the top. Lord have mercy. It says, for by grace you have been saved through faith. That's how you got there. Because of the faith of your mama, the faith of your grandmother. Somebody prayed for you. That's how you got there. So be respectful. And
absolutely.
Yeah, let me say it again. There's no need to backstab your coworker to try to get ahead. And so to keep that in mind. When you say validate, I'm so glad you said it, because I don't know. I think I'm okay as a husband, but I find that I am constantly thinking the validation of my wife make me feel like I'm doing all right. I say, how come you? Because medical report says you need at least 4 a day. I'm like, I gotta get hugs, sweetheart. I need 4 hugs. This morning, but that was a long time ago, sweetheart. Now I say, and so, and women constantly get need validation from men who are, do you love me? Am I pretty? You know what I'm saying? So, how many times do I got to tell you I love you? A million times a day.
All day.
Amen.
Oh, boy.
Validation. You know, I'm sitting there trying to watch TV, and she might kind of snuggle on me. That's what, am I, a pillow?
Yeah.
I'm like, here we go.
Well, you know, what you're referencing, what is it, 2 Corinthians talks, 12:9 talks about, you know, basically we're not made to be independent beings. We really aren't. And so what you speak to is just really the extension of that. Of course, all of us are seeking some level of something, because we can't do this by ourselves. And that's the importance of community. And
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Well, I understand what you're saying, but your government would want you to stay in the house pandemic style by yourself and don't talk to nobody.
Come on, with opioid overdoses being a disease of isolation. Come on now. And that's why we got to talk up and speak up. Absolutely. We're not supposed to be by ourselves.
When I watch these animal shows, the predator, the lion, and the cheetah, and the tiger, they all want to weak, the dumb, and isolate. You're a perfect target.
Well, you know what? Divide and conquer. You know, right now you talked about, you know, the reality of us getting to the top and how will we succeed and recognizing God's grace and the role that it plays in all of that. But the truth of the matter is we as a community have got to be accountable for the fact that we have been at odds for some time. We've got to come back together, and there's power in unity, but we've got to deal and heal these divides amongst us. And so we've got some work to do, no doubt, but with God's grace in the midst of us, there's nothing that we're not going to accomplish. And that's what so many fear, you know?
Oh, the necessity of grace. Good God Almighty. I think I've seen the destruction of some parts of society that's working when you start to repeal the blue laws, greed, because at least one day was given to God for worship. And then the pursuit of, or the introduction of the soap operas. Because I used to work with a lot of women doing HMO, and they wouldn't want to take care of their children, worrying about what's on the fake story about. I mean, I got to be honest. I got to be real about God Almighty before nowadays, but it was also white people. What the fantasy was and blah 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 and what you looking at him trying to get what he got now. Close it. I told one lady, shut the TV off. I won't come here too often.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to help you with your insurance plan for your children, and that's more important than some fantasy TV, and then the cable and all that. You sit there and watch that all day. You don't do nothing. You don't want to study. Don't want to. Don't want to cook. Don't want to.
Yeah,
it
gets dangerous. Believe me, and that's why we don't.
Yeah, then you do study the Bible.
Yeah, it gets
and then
really dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, and then you want God to bless you. So
yeah.
Now here in Baltimore, I gotta go here. We have some Baltimore trauma chaplains who go out to different homes to respond to crime and part one crimes. One of them. Then they have the police chaplains that were trained to do trauma and some other things like this. When in training, a police officer look at a video and she got all emotional and somebody asked, "What do you need? Do you need trauma help? You're supposed to be an instructor and you melting and breaking down over the video." That's the problem with police officers. Because I see one. The problem with police officers is that once they get too far in, there is no like a tune-up or debriefing. There's nothing to have them actually seek counsel once a year or once every 6 months.
I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you pointed that out. I'm so glad you pointed that out. One of the things that I feel like gets lost in the conversation of whether or not we need police reform or defund the police or, with everything that's going on, the one thing that is bothersome for us as mental health advocates, what in the world allows us to believe that our police officers, our first responders, our fire department representatives, our EMTs, they are not void of experiencing or being exposed to the same levels of PTSD and trauma that we're saying our community members are exposed to. And so there are no organized mandates for themselves to have to have therapy, be assessed mentally, and to have some sort of understanding of a release that is documented, then what allows us to believe that they would not make bad decisions out in the field? So, again, we feel like, mental health is at the core of everything that we're trying to stabilize as a society. And until we're willing to have these conversations and reality checks, then we're not going to get ahead of them. Our police officers must have mental health assessments. They must have exposures to proper trauma trainings and understandings, and they must work hand in hand with the community level advocates because everything is not a policeable situation. And the statistic in the research is showing that our community members are being locked up or sent to jail more often than they're being offered mental health resources and understandings. And the reason why many in the community, in our opinion, don't identify with the need for the mental health resources is because many in the community don't understand what mental health truly is. They're still using yesterday's understanding of mental health to be able to treat today's realities. And exposures are just as dangerous as actually being diagnosed with something. If you don't know what's wrong with you and you're acting out, that's more dangerous to the community and yourself than if we do know and we're able to properly help you get the help that you need. So awareness, that education that you speak on, we're just living in some times right now, and we all have to humble, whether we wear the badge or not. Mental health transcends all communities. I'm telling
Hallelujah.
you.
Listen, I've got. Humor is important in mental health, and so I'm going to try these two icebreaker jokes here. Lord have mercy. Queen, are you with me?
Come on with your joke.
Did she leave me?
Queen, you there?
Okay, she leave me alone. Okay. All right. Here you go. So a pastor got up in the pulpit and immediately apologized for the band-aid on his face. He said, I was thinking about my sermon. While shaving service, the treasurer found a note in the offering plate, and it said, next time, think about your face and the sermon. Okay, we're working.
Okay.
We're working.
Okay.
Okay. Trying to take too long with it. All right, let's try this one. Okay, I got one. Is there anyone in the audience? Randy. He wrote to the pastor, I enjoyed your sermon, especially when it was finished.
That's humor. That's just me.
His name to it. Probably the only person in church named Randy. But this is traumatizing to a pastor. After all the work I studied, I did everything I could. I gave you the best. I prayed, and I put it together, and then this is what a thanks I get for it.
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord.
You know, humor helps. We're really living in some time, so to be able to laugh at ourselves or laugh amongst ourselves is therapeutic in and of itself. Because we're going in and out of some households and some environments that are really dealing with some things still. We've lost a lot of lives and a lot of loved ones, and the reality of being able to laugh and understand that life is going to go on no matter how hard and unfair. We've got to be able to have a point that we can come together. So I thank you for your humor. I love it.
Bless you. You can go back there anytime. Okay, it's all right. Matter of fact, we'll come back. You'll be back next week.
Yeah, I'm going to hang out with you the entire month of September. I thank you. I hope your audience is kind enough to allow me to grow into this. I'm a little rusty. I just know that we're doing is necessary. I don't mind being a representative or a steward for it, because mental health is not something folks like to talk about. But the truth of the matter is that it's second nature, and as long as we can get more comfortable, we can help save more lives and change more lives. So I thank you for having me along.
No, it's no problem. We will have some updated stuff for next week, because you'll be the celebrity co-host, and we will have actually a gospel group here. That will be in the house, and we're talking about that. Listen, go to our Elevation Radio 1 Facebook page. Go to our Elevation Radio 1 podcast showcase page. If you're looking for an organist for your services, you may call at the on-call organist. That is at 410-302-2737. 1-410-302-2737. If you need someone to do some commercials, host your program as a masterful MC, call it 410-929-3061. That's 410-929-3061. That's been Turner Ministries. And to our website at www.ultimatepraise.us. I just said ultimatepraise.us is what I said. Queen, what you got to say?
I think Queen probably say you got it. Queen said you have it today.
I will have to chastise her tremendously.
No, I'm sure she's right here.
I have some female listeners here who are always why can't the Queen something to say? So what I got to say. What do let me try King James. What dost thou have to say, verily, verily, O mighty Queen?
You have to. You sound like I can't hear you clearly. I can't hear you clearly.
What are you trying to say?
What?
Queen?
What are you trying to say, Queen? Is that what you're saying?
I'm trying to give you something to say. Please say something.
I don't understand what he's saying. Does he sound like you're underwater? I'm sorry. You really sound like you're underwater. I can understand you.
This is comical in and of itself, so it's just an extension of your already humor.
I'm getting traumatized, Dr. Hamilton.
Whatever's happening is not.
I'm trying
It
to help
doesn't
my
sound
wife
good.
say something, and she don't want to say nothing to me because she's talking about me.
It's talking about me. I heard that. It's fine. I heard that.
I'm a professional host here.
A banana?
A media journalist.
What are you saying?
We've all been plagued by this technology god during this pandemic, and, why should it be any different in this moment? Nonetheless, I've enjoyed myself, and I think that we were waiting to hear from you, dear Queen, before we wrapped up.
Can you say something in Spanish?
Are you saying to say something in Spanish?
Yes.
Are you telling me?
Hola.
Let the other lady tell me, because I don't understand you. Let the other young lady talk to me.
I'm your husband. How can we understand?
Oh my God, I can hardly understand you. I hear you, but you sound like I can't explain how you sound. Because if I tell you breaking up, you'll get.
Don't you say it. Don't you say it.
I'm not going to say it.
Can you interpret this?
Yes, dear Queen. He was
That's
asking
you saying. I know you're laughing
before we wrapped up.
Did you hear that?
Oh, can you say it again?
Oh,
please?
My Lord. Oh, my God.
This technology is something
sorry.
else. No, you're fine, dear Queen. I thank you again for having me, and I think that your dear other half was asking you to say something before he wrapped us up.
Oh, absolutely. I'm on the program, but it's really hard for me to understand him.
Okay, we got that
but I
already.
understand you, and I enjoy listening to you. And really listening to you is very encouraging. Just want you to know that. And
that means a lot.
Looking forward. And looking forward into hearing you speak once again.
Oh, well, that's the last. Thank you, Queen. That's the last thing I'd like to ask you. Do you actively speaking engagements?
I do, and obviously most of the speaking I've been doing has been in relation to the work that we're doing on the ground, but I am available. I can be reached either directly at 240-274-9436. Our coalition's phone number is 202-643-5396. And again, I'll give you a couple of websites so you can follow what we're doing and why we're calling it a movement. MI Mothers with an S, Keeper.com. You'll be able to follow me and get in touch with me and our wonderful mental health work on the community level. CapitalCityEmergency.org. You'll be able to see all of the wonderful information about our fundraising efforts for the Trauma Center. And I hope after you see all of the hard work, you will find your way to the donate button and help us to support the cause. In addition to that, healthydcandme.org, spell and out, and you'll be able to get a whiff of who our coalition is and sign up via our advocate page. And we call it a movement because, again, we recognize the reality that the issues we're dealing with on the ground involving mental health and state of emergency in the district, we realize that Baltimore and some of our other urban settings are dealing with the same concerns. And post-George Floyd, there's just no reason for us to feel like we can't do something different to help these matters of trauma in our communities. Thank you, Steve. We appreciate you.
Oh, no problem. And give my regards to the advisory committee and one of the persons you may have to work with the hardest, Quincy.
Yes, Queen C, absolutely. We have a lot of wonderful talent and decorated individuals that are in the background of our movement, making certain that the foundation that we have is solid. When you go out here talking about you're going to build a trauma center and you look like we look, you better know what you're talking about, and you better have some thick skin about you.
Right. Most definitely. And before I close, did you say that Frederick Ware Newsom is on your advisory board?
Say one more time.
Did you say that Dr. Fred Ware Newsom is on your advisory board?
Dr. Frederick Ware Newsom's counterpart, Dr. Carlinia Springer, serves as one of our advisors, and she also serves on our And My Mother's Cooper Mental Health Board. Very active, absolutely.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Then, listen, it's been real. We'll see you next week. God willing, 5:30 Eastern Standard Time for the Elevation Radio 1 program. And let me thank you again and extend it to the tally that you so richly deserve as a leader and shaker and mover in the D.C. district. And next week we'll talk more about cruise, which my wife is scared of because she doesn't like water.
Oh, sorry to hear that. We're going to make sure that we do something that we can all be a part of. But, yes, we have quite a bit of events going on, and I look forward to talking with you next week. And folks can get more information on any of those websites, or they can reach out to us via telephone.
Yeah, I'm going to go and try to convince her to go on a cruise.
Oh, that would be wonderful. We'd love to have you. I've enjoyed you guys.
You've never seen her live in person. But I just want to ask one thing before I go, and that is, what type of food will be there? Because that's important on the cruise.
Oh, my goodness. The kinds of food that's going to be light, because we know many of us women, when we go out, we don't like to eat too heavy, but it'll be light, it'll be fulfilling, it'll be nourishing, it'll be fun, it'll be atmospheric, and what that means is that I understand every now and then I want to have a nice chicken wing in my hand, I want to have a nice hors d'oeuvre, I want to be able to have a nice variety. Maybe if I'm not a meat person, I want to be able to have a veggie or a fruit. And so I just want you to know we're thinking like that with the menu and putting all that together. So it will be very complimentary. We don't do a lot on the water. As you say, many of us are a little frightful of the water. But we're trying to do things to be bold, as our dear deceased Mr. Lewis told us, that we've got to go out here and get into good trouble, and we've got to be able to be uncomfortable sometimes in the place of doing good. And so we're just trying to bring us into atmospheres that we're typically not.
Okay, so this is a networking, business, good time kind of. My wife likes, she likes to eat.
We all do. She doesn't own that, that's for sure. But yeah, we're going to have a fashion show. I bet she likes fashion. We're going to have a live band. We're going to have 4 comedians. Our dear Asia Chandler from the radio personality. We're celebrating the Libra birthdays. I'm a Libra. Oh, my God, we've got some community icons that we're going to give some awards to. So we just, we're calling this to celebrate the cruise for charity, and we're celebrating divas from our fashion show and our icons from the community. So there's going to be something here for everybody. And, again, the history books have taught us, the ancestor shoulders that we stand on. We've got to create these types of moments for ourselves now. What contributions are we going to make when we know in the face of what our people are facing? So come on out and have a good time and do something different. We get so stuck in our own selves sometimes. This is bigger than that. This is about God's grace. He delivered us, and now there are some more folks that we see that need deliverance. So I thank you, Pastor Steve.
Oh, it's no problem. Just one question pops in my mind. I'm trying to end the program. Is will there be any music, any singing?
Oh, absolutely. There's going to be a live music band, and there's also going to be a DJ. And the reality of having both allows us to provide a wonderful mixture of music, because sometimes it can't always be church and sometimes it can't always be secular. So we like to have a mix of both, because where the community is involved, we've got to stay open-minded enough to bring everybody. And so fellowship is something that we as a people tend to do well. So we're excited about this opportunity on the water. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm bringing my business cards.
Please do. Everybody needs to know you. I'm glad to know you have business. Everybody I know needs to know you. You are an awesome soldier of God, and just the wonderful conversations we've had off the radio have been so empowering and enlightening. So, yes, by all means, bring your business cards, because you are a resource that our community needs to know.
Can you tell my wife that?
Look, I'm gonna say she observes you from a different light. I learned from Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, when she talks about the locks on the door. You paint that your wives can paint a whole different picture, so we better, that's the kryptonite. Superman.
Let me say this as I close out, and I will be closing out in seconds. Judge Mathis, who's around the globe and celebrated in the country, said when he comes back home, he thinks his wife's going to do something to honor him as Eric does. She says, take the trash out. You may be big out there.
Take that trash out. You know how we do.
You may be big out there, but you're just Greg. Okay, my husband. And so that's great. All right. My wife will say it in Spanish, so I'm just gonna have to leave now. Can you tell me you love me at least in Spanish?
Can I tell you?
No. Can I ask my wife to tell her husband that she loves him in Spanish?
You might be reaching. She told you she couldn't understand you.
No, that's why I'm asking you to do it.
Oh, can I tell her? Tell me,
her beloved husband, that she loves me in Spanish.
To tell me. You want to tell me?
He has a request. Yes, he has a request that he'd like for you to tell him that you love him in Spanish.
I'll just tell him me amor.
Woo! Okay, I gotta go.
I think that he's showing off. He wants everybody to know how educated and worldly his wife is, and so he wants you to be able to.
Oh my God! It's funny.
Is that you love me?